كنبأة أشفلت غفلا من الغنم كنبأة أشفلت غفلا من الغنم مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم ما زال يلقاه في كل معترك ما زال يلقاه في كل معترك حتى حكوا بالقنا لحما على وضري حتى حكوا بالقنا لحما على وضري مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم وَدُّوا الْفِرَارَ فَكَادُوا يَغْبِطُونَ بِهِ وَدُّوا الْفِرَارَ فَكَادُوا يَغْبِطُونَ بِهِ أشلاء مع العقبال والرحم أشلاء مع العقبال والرحم مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم تمضي الليالي ولا يدرون عدتها تمضي الليالي ولا يدرون عدتها ما لم تكن من ليالي الأشهر الحرم ما لم تكن من ليالي الأشهر الحرم مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم كأن الدين ضيف حل ساعتهم كأن الدين ضيف حل ساعتهم بكل قوم إلى لحم العدا قرني بكل قوم إلى لحم العدا قرني مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم
نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم. Most respected elders and friends, beloved mu'takifin, before the Dhuhr Salah, I tried to explain and remove a misconception that Islam spread to the sword. Many people, they present Islam and they present jihad in an irresponsible way. Jihad actually requires a great amount of discipline. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam was in Makkah Mukarramah, being oppressed, being persecuted, but Almighty Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala had put Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam and Sahaba under a disciplinary training program where you have to overlook, you have to tolerate. And not only that, in the face of all hardships, wake up in the middle of the night and turn to Allah tabarak wa ta'ala, inna nashi'at al-layli hiya ashaddu wat'an wa aqwa qila. They're being oppressed, they're being persecuted. Logically it says that you need to fight back. But Almighty Allah tabarak wa ta'ala had put Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and Sahaba under the spiritually training program. When a person is able to sacrifice his sleep, when a person is able to squash his nafs from within himself, when he is able to deal with the enemy from within himself, then the person will be able to deal with the enemy from outside. That is why Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has said, the best jihad that a person can make is the jihad with his nafs. And this is supported from many, many ahadiths. When we look at the condition of the ummah around the world, they seem to be defeated on the war field. And the reality is that they are first defeated inside, that's why they're defeated outside. If they were victorious inside, have been able to control their nafs and dominate their nafs, they have victory over the nafs, then in the outside world they'll be able to become victorious. And that is why many people have a misunderstanding of this concept of jihad, get in a state of emotion, and they want to take irresponsible parts in this jihad. It is not like the Sahaba. They were just told, in a state of emotion, throw it all into the war field and start killing and butchering people. Like what is noticed in some parts of the Middle Eastern countries, where people in a state of emotion, in a most indisciplined way, in a most irresponsible way, and now killing people, shedding the blood of people. That is not the jihad that Islam talks about. In Islam, jihad is a great amount of discipline. And it is with that, once that discipline comes in the person, now you can talk about the real jihad in a war field. Otherwise, nowadays many people, they hear information from the media, different information that comes from the various sites, and they talk about going and taking part in jihad. But tell them to fight their nafs and wake up for Fajr Salah. You've missed your Fajr Salah left, right and center, and then you talk about going and making jihad. Or, for example, when he's told to a youngsters, fight your nafs and obey your parents, do what your mother is telling you to do what your father is telling you to do. Then you can't go against your nafs in obeying your mother and your father, yet you think about carrying a big weapon in the war field and fighting the enemy. At the same time, people in the financial field, people are talking about going in jihad, talking about crushing the heads of the enemy and shedding blood from them. But why don't you go against your nafs and as a solvent debtor, go and fulfill the right of the creditor? It's very easy to say, I'm going to pick up the gun and I'm going to throw a bullet at someone. But what about the bullet against the nafs? You owing people money. Go against that and fulfill the rights of the people. Do that inside jihad first. Try to conquer the enemy from within before you want to try to conquer the enemy in the outside world. And in fact, there are hadiths to support this. It is mentioned in a hadith, Muhammad ibn Abdullah ibn Jahash, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he says that once they were seated with Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in a masjid. Nabi Kareem sallallahu heard a huge sound. He put his hand on the head and he said, Mada nuzila min at-tashdeed. What great warning from the side of Allah came. The way Nabi Kareem sallallahu expressed himself, no Sahabi had the guts to go and ask Nabi sallallahu what was it all about. The following day, somebody went up to Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam and asked Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Mada nuzila min at-tashdid?" So on that Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned that Jibreel alayhi salatu wasallam came and told to me, "Law anna rajulan qutila fi sabilillah thumma uhya, thumma qutila fi sabilillah thumma uhya, thumma qutila fi sabilillah thumma uhya, ma dakhala al-jannah hatta yuqda baynahu." Or kama qala Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Jibreel alayhi salatu wasallam came and told me, if a person happened to go out in the path of Allah, he sacrifices his body and his blood, Perchance he's given life for the second time. Again he goes in the path of Allah and he passes away for the second time. The same thing happened the third time. 3 times if a person has given his life in the path of Allah, but if he owes somebody money, he's got the financial means and ability to pay the debt of the person, then that person will not go into Jannah until he pay the debt and the right of the creditor. Now we are talking about jihad, but what about the jihad against the nafs? And what about fulfilling the hukuk and the rights of fellow human beings? That is why I mentioned afzalul jihad. Fight the nafs, and once you fight the nafs, you conquer the nafs. If from within, then you will be able to conquer the enemy in the outside world. And that is why when you look at the concept of jihad, it is not just attacking the enemy. It is first about da'wah, inviting the people to Islam. And that is the challenge of our time. In one hadith, Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam reported to mention, Buni al-Islamu ala khams, shahadati Allah ilaha illallah, wa anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, وإقام الصلاة وإيتاء الزكاة وصوم رمضان وحج بيت الله. 5 fundamental pillars of Islam. First, to proclaim there is no one worthy of worship but Allah, and Muhammad is the Rasul of Allah. First fundamental pillar of Islam. Second, to establish the Salah. Third, if you are a rich and wealthy person, in Islam we believe in a concept of sharing. We believe we should not be selfish. We should not be self-centered. Worry about that person who's got no food in the house. Worry about that person who's got no shelter. Worry about that person who hasn't got sufficient clothing. Part of your wealth that Allah has given us, we share to poor and needy, and we believe in a concept of development and social upliftment. Fasting in the month of Ramadan, as we are fasting right now, it is a spiritual exercise to connect ourselves with Almighty Allah. And the 5th fundamental pillar of Islam is Hajj Baytullah. We are talking in the context of jihad. The greatest jihad in today's time is to invite the people to Islam, make them see the beauty of Islam, and the media that is portraying the Islam as a barbaric religion, for us to show that that is not the truth. We need to show the soft part of Islam. We need to show that Islam is a loving and a compassionate religion. In one hadith, Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam reported to have mentioned, Inna Allah rafiq yuhibbur rifq. Allah is naram. Allah is soft. And Allah loves softness. In one hadith, Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam reported to have mentioned that yu'ti Allah ala rifq ma la yu'ti ala al-unuf. That Almighty Allah Tabarak grants a person on being soft that he does not grant when a person is being hard. In one hadith, Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentioned, Ala unabbi'ukum biman yahrumu an-nar alayhi wa biman tahrumu an-nar alayhi. Should I not tell you about that person who will never enter in the fire of hell, and the fire of hell will never touch him? 2 things Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentioned, kullu leenin hayyinin. Person that is soft, person that is loving, that person that is cooperative, person that tries to help and assist people. You don't worry about yourself, but you worry about helping and assisting the next person as well. That soft attitude, that is something that is a challenge of the time. We need to show the world outside what Islam is all about. Defy the wrong information that is being portrayed through the media about Islam being a barbaric religion, and about Islam is all about, only about jihad, and Islam is only about spreading to the sword. We need to remove that misconception. The beauty of Islam needs to be shown to the people. And that is why our akhlaq is very important. Our character, the self-discipline. Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam reported to mention, Inna asqala shay yuza'u fil mizan yawm al-qiyamah khuluqun hasanun. That the most weightiest thing that will be placed on the scales of justice on the day of Qiyamah will be good akhlaq and character. In one hadith, Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is reported to mention, when Sahabi asked Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Ya Rasulullah, ma khayr ma uti al-insan? What is the best thing that can be given to a human being? Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentioned, khuluqun hasan. Good character. Good character. People talk about going out in jihad, but then if the husband cannot bear the nagging of the wife, and he just flares up with anger, how are you going to bear the bullets and the bombs that are falling in the warfield? So first bear these bullets. Bear these bombs here and fight your nafs from within your own self. And the world, they don't want to see the theoretical Islam. The theoretical Islam, that they can find it in Google. They can find so much information written in Islam. People want to see the real Islam. They want to see the theoretical Islam being translated into practical reality. And for that, I'll just give you one example before I start translating these poems. You see, there was once a dispute in India on a piece of land between Muslims and Hindus. The Hindus claimed that land belonged to them. The Muslims claimed that land belonged to them. So the matter went to a court. The judge was a very intelligent person. He understood the sensitivity of the matter. Muslims and Hindus are living together and fighting on a piece of land. It shouldn't happen that a civil war breaks out here. So instead of giving a judgment, he asked the people that identify one person who all of you trust. Muslims trust, non-Muslims also trust. The non-Muslims, it came out from their mouth that they're a very pious person that we trust because of our interaction with him, because of our dealing with him, and referred to this great personality, Mufti Alaihi Mirati. Great personality. So non-Muslims told to the judge, recommended that make him responsible to investigate the matter who the land belongs to, because we trust him. He's a truthful person. He's an honest person. So the mandate was given to Mufti Alaihi Mirati with the recommendation of the Hindus. Then the appointed time came to come back with a report to the court. So the judge asked Mufti Alaihi Mirati. Now understand, the court was full to capacity. Muslims and the Hindus are side by side. The judge asked Mufti Alaihi Mirati, what's your findings on the matter? So Mufti Alaihi Mirati told to a judge, I investigated the matter, I applied my own independent mind, and I've concluded that this piece of land belongs to the Hindus. Obviously the Muslims were disappointed, ruling went against them. The judge accepted this finding of Mufti Alaihi Mirati. When he read out the judgment, he made a very thought-provoking statement. And he said that the ruling had been given against the Muslims. The Muslims have lost the case. But the religion of Islam as a religion have won the case today. It is because of the truthfulness of one person that the truth and the right of the people were given out. Now these non-Muslims, the Hindus, they got the land. They thought, look at the effect of the truthfulness. The non-Muslims, the Hindus, they thought to themselves that if this is a value, if there's so much of value for truthfulness in Islam, there's so much of value for fairness, justice and equity in Islam, then why we not embrace the same religion? All those Hindus, they embraced Islam. And that land which they secured to put up a temple, they said, now that we are Muslims with the same land, now we are going to build a masjid with our own hands. This is what Islam is all about. It is not a theoretical thing. People need to see the Islam in our talking with one another, in our interaction, in our business. And that is why we speak about jihad. The jihad of the time is now to present Islam and show the beauty of Islam to the outside world. Very briefly, I will translate these poems that Allama Busayri has mentioned. And when we understanding this poem, we need to understand it within a context. The introduction that I've given you all before Lahore, and with this introduction, it is not like that the Sahaba just went into the war field. And they didn't just show their bravery like that. There was a history before the bravery that is exemplified in this poem. There's a history before this. So very briefly, Allama Busayri says, رَاعَتْ قُلُوبَ الْعَدَى أَنْبَاءُ بِعْثَتِهِ كَنَبْأَةٍ أَجْفَلَتْ غُفْلًا مِنَ الْغَنَمِ. The meaning, when the enemies, they heard of the coming of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, their hearts became fearful. And so much of fear came into them, it is like the information of the coming of a wolf that creates fear in a heedless goat. ما زال يلقاهم في كل معترك حتى حكوا بالقنا لحما على وضم. Qana here refers to a spear. Now, when the enemy of Islam, they wanted to come and fight the Muslims, it's not like Allah the Rasul, na'udhu billah, was a coward and he turned his back and he went away, but it is the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam also always met them at every battle. Until Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba, they were described with the aiming of spears like meat on a chopping block. وَدُّ الْفِرَارَ فَكَادُوا يَخْبِتُونَ بِهِ أَشْلَاءَ شَالَتْ بَعَ الْإِقْبَانِ وَالرَّحَمِ. Here, Ashla, in the second poem, it refers to pieces of meat. That the enemy was so confounded when they confronted the Muslims that the enemies desired to flee from the war field, and the enemies, they envied that piece of flesh that was carried away by vultures and eagles. In other words, that if there were a comrade and if he was attacked, they would prefer if an eagle or vulture would pick up that body and the corpse of his comrade, the enemies in the war field would envy that, because at least the vulture and the eagle have taken away what will become of us. And further he mentioned, تَمْضِي اللَّيَالِي وَلَا يَدْرُونَ عِدَّتَهَا مَا لَمْ تَكُنْ مِنْ لَيَالِي الْأَشْهُرِ الْحُرُمِ. The enemies, so much of fear was struck in them that they would lose their sleep at night, and they would even lose the count of the night, with the exception of the night of Ashhurul Hurum. Ashhurul Hurum, it refers to the 4 sacred months in which war was prohibited. The month of Zilqada, 11th month of the lunar calendar, Zilhajj, 12th month of the lunar calendar, Muharram, the 1st month of the lunar calendar, and Rajab, the 7th month of the lunar calendar. During these months, war was prohibited. The enemies of Islam even knew about that, and in these nights only they were able to sleep. And then said, بِكُلِّ قَرْمٍ كأنما الدين زيف حل ساحتهم بكل قرم إلى لحم العدا قريم. In the second poem, there are 2 words very similar to one another but to completely opposite meanings. Qarm, it refers to a brave soldier, and qarini, it refers to a person being greedy. Now, the translation is that when Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Sahaba, they went and they went to attack any place. So it wasn't just going to fight and attack someone, but it was actually the religion of Islam has now become a guest that have come to the court. They went to present Islam there. They didn't go there just to shed blood. They didn't go there just to create a bad image about Islam. They went there to make the people recognize Allah. They went there so that the makhluk could be attached to Khaliq. So they went there with every brave soldier that was greedy for the meat of the enemy, but being greedy for the sake of Allah, being greedy so that Islam could be presented to them. Inshallah, in the next message we will continue. Subhanallah bihamdihi, subhanakallahumma bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.